Okay, so I remember to push start broadcast. We're good. We're live, and at least you've got the access to the information that we're going through. All right. So adding custom CSS. Now, custom CSS. Oh, I did it again. I always do this. Okay. So why would we want to customize CSS in our websites? To achieve customization, sure. So where would the customization be available through CSS? Would it be just on a specific element, or is it through the entire site? Or
well, that's the whole point of customizing. Do something for one part of it.
Okay. Now I'm not sure if I understand what your answer is, so I'm going to try to reiterate it. So customize, say for example, we're trying to customize the nav bar.
Right. So what I'm saying is, like, if you have several pages, maybe you want to customize one page, be a little bit different.
Okay, so what you're suggesting is a little bit more challenging, but definitely doable, because what you would have to do is create a different class for the CSS. But very doable. It's all no problem. So yes, absolutely. So that's one thing. Back in the day, what would happen is, before we had the CSS, and we know what CSS stands for, right? Oh, look what you guys have done all your homework. All right, so cascading style sheets. Before we had these in place, what would happen is when we were coding HTML sites, every page inevitably would look different. Because, say for example, I coded one page on a Saturday, and I really like Times New Roman 12 point. And on Sunday, for whatever reason, I'm feeling kind of down, and I'd like to use Times New Roman 10 point. And then Monday, well, it's Monday, so I'm going to use Arial. And all of a sudden, all your pages started looking really messy. So CSS was a boon for a website developer, because it basically controls every element of what your website does. So for your body text, it will every time that you use a body text, it will say, okay, Keith has set this up for Arial font, red, 18 point, and how many line spaces, 1.2 M, et cetera, et cetera. So it would do all these things for me, but what would happen is your CSS gets longer and longer and longer, because think about how many different elements it's controlling. So yes, very similar to what you were saying, Mohammed, that yes, you can control specific elements so that it appears differently on one page, or you can control things right across. And with the theme that I utilize, like I was mentioning earlier tonight, I've got toggle switches that I can basically just turn on and off and change the colors, etc. And what it's doing is it's creating a custom CSS file for me. Okay, so then what'll happen is, once I update the theme, it's a separate file. It's a custom CSS file, so it doesn't overwrite that file. It just overwrites the standard ones. So if you go into your theme CSS, your main CSS file, and you make a change to it, say for example you want the font for whatever reason all red, and so you find it in your main site's CSS and you change it to red. That's great. Every time that you look at it, it's red. It's perfect. Everything's wonderful. Your client's happy. You're getting lots of hits, etc. And then you get an update on your theme. Well, what happens is that theme takes all of the main files and writes over top of the existing ones. So it takes the main CSS and overwrites. So what happens to your font? It goes right back to where you started. So it's no longer red. It's no longer Arial. It could be Courier, whatever. Okay, so it's really, really important that you utilize a custom CSS feature. Unless you use child themes, do not use, don't change the actual main CSS file. It's lengthy, and you'll find it eventually, but it's a bit of a pain. And I've fallen into that trap. Again, back in my first website that I did in WordPress, I wasn't aware that it overwrote the main CSS file. So I did all the corrections. The client was thrilled with his website until the first update of the theme. And then all of a sudden you get the phone call on Monday morning, just as you're about to go into work or go and do whatever you need to do, saying, my website's broken. And that's what you'll always hear is, my site is broken. It's not broken. It's just the CSS has been overwritten. So what we can do is we can do it in two spots. You can create your own file, but most themes, and even the free theme, so that's the good news, has a section if you go theme, customize, and there should be an option once the window pops open that says custom CSS at the bottom. You can go into that window and you can type it out. But how do you know what you're typing out? How would you, okay, let's go with a website here first off. And I don't have a mouse and I'm using the mouse. So I'm going to go with Safari, and I'm going to go. Okay, so I've got this website, and this is one that I'm still developing, but I've got the website. So I'm looking and going, okay, that's great. And you really can read the font when you're on the website. That's the nice thing about it. But I'm looking, going, okay, well, I want to change that. All instances of it looks like the H1 tag. I want to change all instances of the H1 tag to red. But I don't know where it is in the CSS file. Or perhaps I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, I want to change that, but I don't know what that is. That could be an H1 tag, could be an H2, H3, could be a modified body tag. I don't know. So what you can do, actually, what can you do? How do you find out what that element is? Inspect it. Now, I don't know if, okay, this is going to be a dirty confession of a Mac user. I don't use Safari that often, so I'm expecting it to perform the same way as Chrome. You right click.
Well, Safari doesn't have it.
Safari doesn't have it. Awesome. Okay, we're going to go into Chrome. It's there. Okay, so what you can do then is you can highlight a portion of whatever it is that you're looking to modify and right-click it. And once you right-click it, you're going to see a series of options. One of them is called Inspect. You inspect the element, and what that's going to do is it breaks it up into, I wish this projector were better. And what it does is it will show you what that's called. So that says H1, and I can style, and it gives the styling. So if I wanted to modify it, I wanted to make sure first off that I wanted it to look good. I can go in to the styles here and say I wanted to change it red. I can do a temporary change. And when I'm doing a temporary change, all it's doing is that instance. So as soon as I update that page, it's not going to go there anymore. But as you can see, I've updated the red, updated the H1 tag, and all references are red. Problem solved. No, it's not, because as soon as you refresh that page, that change goes away. So what you would do is, now that you know what the tag is, then you can go into your custom CSS file and you look and go, hey, you know what, that really does look nice. I like that. Go into your custom CSS section, and then you can do the H1 tag. And you guys are familiar with doing the CSS at this point? No? Okay. I'll work with you guys individually, because there's half of us are pretty confident in the CSS. There's others that are just kind of starting in the program. So I'll work with you guys on that. But all you have to do then is basically change or modify that CSS tag and then save it, and all references of the H1 tag, because I modified just the H1 tag, will change to red. Now, if I wanted to, like Mohammed was saying, if I wanted it only to all the H1 tags only on the home page to be red, and everywhere else I want it to be black, then I would have to create a different class and make a reference to that new class. So H1A. And then on my home page, it'll be all H1A, which are all red, and everywhere else H1s, and that would be black. So you could execute what Mohammed's saying. It's kind of convoluted when you're just starting, but certainly it's doable. Okay, so like I say, remind me if I forget to show you, go over some of the custom CSS with you guys. I want to get you guys rolling before we go into the CSS. Okay. All right, so you're familiar with this, and do I need to do an in-class exercise with you guys on doing the modification of the CSS, or are you guys confident on it? The ones that are good at it. You guys are confident?
In WordPress?
In WordPress.
I would like to see.
Okay. All right, so let's go back into I'm going to pull up the college prof again, because the last thing I'm sure my client would want to see is me modify their website. So okay, so now mine is going to show a little bit different than yours. So I'm going to try to do it the same way that you guys would do it, because in my theme, I have my custom CSS right there. And as I was mentioning about the toggle switches, I'll show you some of the toggle switches. This is why I use this website or this theme, because if I want to change my layout from box to wide, it's just a matter of a click, and it changes the CSS for me. If I want to change the shadow type, the box mode shadow type, I can add a shadow to it, and it will change the CSS. I've got all of these elements that I can modify. And the nice thing is that you can set up your responsive site, and you don't need to, with this theme, you don't need to even actually write a lick of CSS code at all, because you can do most of what you need done there. So anyhow, but right near the bottom, I've got a custom CSS section. And I haven't written any custom CSS in there, but that's where you would write the custom CSS in my theme that I'm using. Now, for you to find your custom CSS, you would go into Appearance, Themes. Actually, there's a Customize option right there. You click on Customize. Okay, I'm sorry. My apologies. I thought it called it Custom. It's called Additional CSS. And then you can click on that. And actually, I do have additional CSS written in there. Man, I wish this were better. What I've changed is the footer copyright area. Now, as developers and coders, what have I done that's a fatal flaw? I don't know if you can see what that says. Okay, I haven't commented. So always comment any CSS changes you make, because if you get to the point where you've got 50 or 60 changes, you're going to want to know exactly, and it kind of tells you the story of what you've changed. And you can even type in why. And all you've got to do for that is add in the /*, and then I'm going to call it the changed footer appearance. And then /*, and everything reappears. Now, the nice thing is that this is a non-executable line. Comment codes are all non-executable, which means that you can have as much as you want in a comment. It's not going to affect how the page loads. It's just basically telling you can write yourself a story if you wanted to. It could affect your load times a little bit, but anyhow. Okay, does that make sense? Commenting? It was real quick, and for those of you who are already there, I apologize. For those of you who haven't been, that's something new. Any time that you modify anything, always comment, because what it's going to do is, and I guarantee this, is in 6 months' time when you sit down on your 50th website and you're going, why did I do this? This will tell you why or how. And that's really significant. I had a client that sat down with me and said, I need an application created somehow that's really usable and easy, that will show me all the keywords and where they rank, etc. I created it in Excel because he has Excel. Everyone has Excel. So I created it for him in that, and I call it Big Fish Little Pond. But what happened was I didn't comment anything. So when Google changed the way they presented all of their information on the keyword research, I had to go into my application and modify it. And then I looked at my stuff and I didn't comment it and went, I have no idea what I'm doing. So by doing that, I had to recreate the entire application, which is okay because it didn't cost me theoretically anything other than my time. However, as a business owner, it cost me a lot of dollars an hour. And as an employee, if I were working for a company and I created something I didn't comment, and I had to go and recreate the entire, say for example, the entire website because I didn't comment anything, I didn't know what to do, like what I had done, I'll probably lose my job because they're now having to pay me to do the same job twice. All right? So add comments wherever possible, especially if you're developing a site for somebody, like your uncle, he may take that site and go, well, thank you very much, Mohammed, that's awesome. And then turn and say, hey, James, by the way, can you update this for me? And what you're doing is you're showing James how good of a coder you are by saying, this is what I did and why I did it. So he's not having to spend your uncle's time or money by figuring out what the heck it was. And trust me, when you've got a lot of lines of code, it sometimes takes a very, very long time to figure out. CSS is not so bad, but if you're doing some modifications to the PHP files and whatnot, you really, really should do that. All right, so what I've done here is I modified the footer. So this is, for my footer, it's called fusion-footer-copyright-area. And what I've done is I've set the background color to a hex code of E7, E7, E7. And that's a light gray. So you can set it, I can change that in my theme's appearance. But I changed it there, and I don't remember why, but I did. And then I changed the border color. You can modify all of these different things. The one element that you should be always aware of, if I've got my markers, is the format would be dot, say for example, we're changing the H1. The format is the dot H1, and that's a left brace. And then you would change, say for example, the font color, colon, this, semicolon. Okay, the semicolon basically says end of line. Proceed to the next command. And then you can do font size. Actually, font size. Okay, so these are all the paddings and whatnot. So then you can go like that. And then you end it with a right brace. That's the format that you should be using, that you will have to use for CSS to work. If you miss the bracket, it's just not going to know what you're doing, and it's not going to make the change, and you're going to spend hours looking for why. Semicolons, it's not as bad if you miss a semicolon in CSS as it would be in PHP. So yeah, so that's the formatting. And like I say, there's all sorts of different things that you can see, especially when you right-click the element. That will tell you the color, the padding, the color of the font, etc. So then you can basically copy that snippet of text, bring it into your custom CSS, and make the changes. Yes?
What's it called?
This one?
No, the one before this one.
That's your, that's declaring the class. So that's the start.
Okay, so it comes to class.
Yeah.
Go on to top for each one.
Okay, so I used a bad example then, sorry.
That's what I was getting confused.
Okay, my apologies. So I'm going to call it the footer then. Sorry.
In the libraries, there might be built-in tags.
Yeah.
Or just type.
Yeah. My apologies, guys.
No worries.
But we're good? Excellent. Okay. All right, let's go back. to where we were. Okay, now social media. This is kind of we're kind of pulling away a little bit from our what the structure of the course was, where they said you'd only focus on the actual platforms. I really feel it's very significant to give you guys a understanding of what type of content drives what, because we are working with that content management. So social media. So how do you add social media options to the website? A button? Okay. So what different types of social media can you do? So you've got, now okay, and I'm not gonna ask this right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil your fun. Okay, so you can do two things with social media. You can have the links and say, hey, follow me on, or you can give the option of sharing your post on social media. So you've got the social shares, and you've got the follow me links. Okay, so you can do one of two things. So you're directing the viewer to your actual social media page, or you can share your post via the social media platforms. Okay, so you've got the two. You're looking perplexed, no? Okay. Okay, so one of the things that you want to ask yourself is, are you going to encourage sharing your information via the social media? What do you guys think? If you're creating a personal resume, are you going to put any of the posts or blogs on it that encouraging them to share? No, why not?
Oh, for blog posts, for sure, definitely. I just thought, like, resume site.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, I'm going to throw a knuckleball at you though. If you have a share resume, like a LinkedIn share, that's great. That's gold. Because if you've got somebody on it, like say Shamar goes to the website, like your personal resume site, and says, hey, wow, you know what? I didn't realize Craig had all these skills, shares it on his LinkedIn, all of a sudden your resume is getting out to all those people that are on his network. So anyhow, so there's ideas. But would I share my resume? Never. Like I wouldn't put it on social media like that. I've got it on my website. You want to check it out, that's great. Here's my personal page. If you want to go, great, because one of the things that's significant with resumes is it gives personal information, where you live, how you live, phone numbers, etc. Okay, so social media sites. So it's an interesting mix. So we've got the Rabbit Hole website. We've got a driver instruction. We've got you promised yourself you're going to do a blog. You made a New Year's resolution, and we've got a resume. We've got e-commerce. So what we've got to consider to ourselves, because you guys haven't decided, right? No, okay. So I'm just going to pretend that you're not there right now. Anyhow, so we've got all these different things, but are all social media sites the same? No? Okay. So, all right. So Facebook, what's its specialty?
Sorry, like in terms of what they get from like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you're just sharing posts and content, which can be used for advertising.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. So you used Facebook and Instagram. Very interesting pairing. Okay. I'm looking at all you younger people out there. Do you guys use Facebook ever? You still do? Craig, oh hell no. Why not?
I kind of stopped using it after the whole small.
Okay, so you're not using it for a different reason.
Yeah.
Are you a millennial? Kind of? Kind of on the, okay. Because if you ask most millennials, they say, I don't use Facebook, but for a different reason. I stopped using Facebook when my parents started using Facebook. And no, oh hell, you're okay with that?
No, they just made different Facebook
Okay,
accounts.
all right. Actually, I've got a marketing on the web class where I asked them that very same question, and they all said, yeah. As soon as my parents stopped, that's when I started. That's when I stopped. But you guys use Snapchat now, and you don't use Snapchat. Oh, come on, guys, you're killing
I
me.
feel like it's for millennials. I think you're thinking of the one below.
Much.
Everyone I know is on it.
Okay.
I'm like mid-20s.
Mid-20s. Okay, Mid-20s, all right, my personal experience, okay, my personal experience is the demographic is more prone to Snapchat and Instagram than Facebook because it's quicker. It's send you a picture and it's 10 seconds and it's gone again in cyberspace, or 30 seconds or whatever their time setting is.
Facebook was like jumping to like different avenues and it's kind of confusing. Like Facebook's just a personal website, you just with friends. Now there's like a marketplace also. Then it's also like an e-commerce shop that you can sell stuff on.
Yeah. So they've branched out into all sorts of different things now. But the important thing is that you've got to remember that not all social media sites are created the same. Facebook is very good as a catch-all. You can post your videos, you can put your photos on there. Like you say, it's got your marketplace, etc. YouTube is really the #1 thing is video. I think it's the only thing really, but anyways, it's video. It's also a bit of a social network where people go on and they exchange ideas and whatnot. Vimeo, same idea, but then you've got Instagram, which is primarily images, and Snapchat, which is primarily images, but kind of different because Instagram is, this is who I share to. Would you ever use a situation with Snapchat on your website? No, because of the way that they keep their servers. You might be able to, and forgive me because I'm not a huge Snapchat user, but as far as I understand with Snapchat, it's 30 seconds and the image is deleted unless you save it on their server, and then it's there for a day, and after that it's gone. I think that's the way something like that. But you can download that image to your computer. So it really becomes a nightmare. So if you're going to download the image and then upload it to your website, why include Snapchat? That's more of a quick conversation, but you can certainly use it in your social media strategy. It's just I wouldn't recommend linking it to your website.
It's more personal. You have your own contact list.
Yeah.
You actually share with. So it's not as mobile as grammar. It's in a whole world.
Okay, so would you consider then avoiding it for advertising?
Not really. Like, I mean, it's good to advertise to your friends. And, like, I mean, you can sort of branch out to like other people as well. You can, so it could be good for advertising, but it kind of defeats the purpose. So
Okay, so my homework tonight is learning more about Snapchat because I'm going to ask you a question that's going to tell you that I need to learn more about Snapchat. Can you share an image from Snapchat? So if all of you guys are in my network and I send out a picture and Justin goes, wow, that's a really awesome picture, he can't share it with his network?
In screen cap it.
Yeah.
And then share it, but it doesn't link back to you.
Okay, so it really is an isolated social media site. Okay, so Instagram, would you use Instagram for advertising? Oh, yeah. So you've got to understand what you're needing it for. If you're a daycare provider, would you use Instagram as a social media site?
No, Pinterest.
Okay. Okay, so you're using Pinterest. Why would you use Pinterest instead of Instagram? Moms. Okay, so you're knowing your demographic a little bit. Now I send my dog to, and that was a horrible segue, and I apologize. I didn't mean it. Yeah, doggy daycare. We send our dog to a kennel, and when we're away, the kennel will post his picture on their Facebook page. You can't do that with kids. Oh no. So, but that's kind of where I'm going. Is Instagram would be kind of nice for a doggy daycare where the parent one, it's more like, hey, here's a craft at home, or here's what you can do with your child, etc. So you're targeting your audience a little bit more with social media. But if you understand it, it will play very deeply into your pockets. So we've gone over some of the, okay, so the strengths of Facebook, we agree that it's kind of a catch-all. It's kind of a little bit of everything, but it's not really, it was never intended at least for an e-commerce or a business purpose. It's been repurposed for that. But when it was first created, that's not what they were kind of looking for. One that we haven't talked about is Twitter. Do you guys all have Twitter accounts? You used to? Why'd you stop using it?
I guess I didn't really hear much people talking about it anymore. It kind of phased out for me.
Okay,
Because when I first started my portfolio, I was trying to network with everybody. You could put a hashtag out there, anyone search that hashtag.
yeah,
They can find it on what's on. So,
but you just kind of faded away?
yeah.
Okay. James, do you have a Twitter account?
I do. I look at it every once in a while.
Only when you're interested in hearing what Donald Trump said dumb next.
Yeah.
I mean, that's right.
Okay, so Twitter is actually, it's an excellent tool, and what it was developed for was way back in the day with the T9 phones, where you punch in A, B, C, or like, so you're looking, yeah, your number keyboard, and the way you would send a text message, if I said, if I want to send cab, it's 1, 2, 3 on the 2, and then you wait a second, 1 for the A, and then 1, 2 for the B, etc. But what would happen is back then you were only allowed 140 characters per text. And if you were in the middle of an argument with somebody, you'd have to punch out the thing and then, okay, you're at 140, send, and then punch out the next, and it loses some impact. But that's what was happening. And that's why Twitter originally was 140 characters. I think they've increased it now, they've doubled it to 280 now. So they're moving with the times. They're still intending for it to be a short snippet, but now they're recognizing that people are wanting to send more information out. It's an excellent tool for video sharing, as long as they're relatively brief, they're memes, photo sharing, as well as any quick thoughts or whatever, or updates.
Probably helps if you're small hands.
Yes, like well, with the T9, oh, I threw many of phones because you can't do it. It's too small. Okay, so we've talked about all of them. YouTube, as you see, people are using YouTube for different things now, and as you can see, it's now permeating into the college instruction, where I'm putting all the classes up on YouTube, and it's compliments of YouTube Live. So Heather, when you weren't here that week, you could have easily just checked in to see what we were doing and attend the class without being physically here. And what I'm going to take this as I'm going forward, I'm going to be bringing it to the next level where I'm going to be allowing comments. So if you're sitting at home because you're sick, you can ask a question. You can type it up. It'll show up there, and it's basically now becoming a webinar. Okay, so you can do all sorts of different things, and then with YouTube, I just push end of broadcast, and if I've saved it, I set it up as a public, then it just automatically goes to my YouTube page. And if I've set it up as private, then I can manipulate it accordingly. Okay, so we've talked about for whom. Now, this is an interesting one. And this one I'm going to go into a different PowerPoint slide. Have you guys ever considered when the best time to post anything on social media are? You've considered it? Okay, so Craig, what do you think?
There's like a specific time, say morning.
Morning? Okay. For personal or for everybody?
For everybody. Sure.
Okay. Anybody else?
Some specific, like, well, like you would know, maybe as like.
We're going to go through it. Trust me, by the end of tonight, you're going to know too. Mark, what do you think?
There's lots of like sites that we add on usage,
Yeah.
demographic usage and stuff. I used to sell a lot of things on eBay, so you can look at all sites, all kinds of sites, when people are using it the most, what demographics are using it, and then check that out.
So do your homework and do it that way as well?
Because, yeah, sometimes it depends what you're posting.
No, absolutely. And that's exactly what we're about to talk about. So I'm going to open this one.
The thing is, when I was sort of experimenting with Instagram,
Yeah.
I think the number of posts that I also put made an impact. Like once I stopped posting, it kind of died. But there was a time where like within like 24 hours, I had 100 followers because I just kept posting like every 5 minutes.
Cool. Okay, so that's great. So you were posting lots of posts, lots of posts. But what was your fatal flaw though?
I think posting too much might turn them off.
Oh, could drive people nutty. Absolutely.
Right.
But what's the other one though?
Because you won't have new engaging content every 5 minutes.
So new engaging content, absolutely. And the other thing is that you're not actually back and forth communicating with people. You're so busy pushing new content out that people are going to become alienated. And they're going to say, well, okay, you know what? I'm so tired of hearing about Muhammad's. Now he's on, oh, good, he's at breakfast. Oh, good, now it's dessert. That people start tuning you out. But if you engage with them, you send out a thought-provoking thing and somebody replies and you reply, now all of a sudden you're going back and forth. And that's exactly what social media marketing is all about, is getting the two-way communication. So the complete guide to the best times to post on social media and more. Okay, so when to post on Twitter. So believe it or not, and if this were a decent projector, you would see the I believe that's the days. Yes, Monday starting at the front and then Sunday at the end. So as you can see, the most significantly used postings are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So that's when people are doing the most Twitter posts. During what period? I'm glad you asked. Excellent question. I knew you were thinking it, Heather, so I just thought I would just take it anyhow. During the business hours. So basically from 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. till, well, let me just verify, it's basically between 8 and 6 p.m. is your peak period for Twitter. So kind of like what you were saying during the day. So we know now that it's Tuesday through Thursday during the business time is the most amount of tweets. So logically, if I'm a B2B or a B2C organization, is that when I'm going to send out tweets?
But that's the thing, like, if everybody's sending information at that time, you might sort of get lost in the crowd.
Okay, see, now that's exactly where I'm going, because here's the most effective days to tweet based on retweets. You've got Sunday. So studies show that most tweets are retweeted on a Sunday. And as you know, the intent basically with what I was talking about a couple minutes ago is the two-way communication. So if I put out a tweet and Mohammed, you look at it and you retweet it, and then Shamar's on your network and he retweets, and then James retweets, and all of a sudden, that's exactly what our intent is. So if I'm a marketer and I'm being strategic, similar to what you were suggesting, I'm not going to post during the business hours, Monday through Friday. Just not going to, because there's so much noise in the Twitter sphere that it's not worth it. And not only that, people aren't retweeting as frequently as on the weekend. And that's the key ingredient. So the effective times to tweet. This is kind of neat. This is based on retweets, and you get the most of them at night. Between the highest one is at 10 to 11. But if you look, it kind of fluctuates a little bit. But if you're spiking here, now all of a sudden I know if I'm sending out tweets, I'm going to aim for Sunday. I'm going to be sending it out at 10 to 11. I know it's counterintuitive because, wait a minute, I'm a B2B organization. I'm not going to send out a tweet on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock. I am, because guess who's looking at those tweets? Real people. And these people are the ones that are doing the retweeting. So you can't think, you've got to adapt your thinking that you can't think like a B2B organization if you want to be found. So you've got to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to change my strategy. We're going to tweet during off hours where there's less tweets going on and more tweets, or more retweets happening. So basically be the big fish in the little pond is kind of what you were referring to, Mohammed. When to do content marketing. So now you were talking, James and Heather were both talking about doing blogs. So most blogs are released on Tuesday and Wednesday. 18% of all published blogs are during that day. Thursday is a close second at 17.9, Monday at 17.2. And then the least amount of blogs being released is on a Sunday and a Saturday. So most blogs published are during the work week at 87% of the time. So if I'm a corporate blogger, or if, say, for example, I'm James and somebody's paying me to write a blog, strategically, I don't really want to release it during the work week because now I know that that's where everybody is, and only 13% of all the blogs are being released on the weekend. And if you release it on the weekend, you're now, once again, that small fish. And oh my goodness, that's great. So guys, this is going to be on the exam, so make sure that you understand this one. Oh, that just turned awful. Okay, so most brands, and basically what it's saying, and there's a little footnote, I guess I was anticipating the projector, between 9 a.m. and 6. So you're getting inundated with new blogs being published during the workday between 9 and 6. So again, your blogosphere at that point is going to be just inundated, and you're going to be lost in the noise. Now, here's the other thing, is that I just want to make sure. So this one line that you can barely see is your social reshares, and this is your blog releases, the other line that you can barely see. So as you can see, Monday, the releases are less than your shares. And the same pattern is starting to happen, but then all of a sudden on Saturday, look at the difference in the graphs. There's more people sharing via the social network than there are people sending out the blogs. So, yeah.
Are the reshares columns reshares only of the ones that were published on that day?
No, that's total reshares.
Okay, so things published during the week.
Yeah.
Could conceivably.
Couldn't conceivably, absolutely. And you've got a very good point that it is feeding into that stat, because what happens with people during the weekend? They have some downtime. They'll sit at the coffee table, and before they would get their Saturday Star out, drop it on the coffee table, and they read. But now they get out their iPads or their laptops, and that's how they consume information now. So yes, you're absolutely right, James, that it does skew it somewhat. But even still, if people are in the sharing mood, I'm going to want to do it when when they're in that sharing mood, and when blog posts are less, because as we know, it's all date stamped. So we want to make sure that our blogs are the freshest, so that they're at the top of the pile. Okay, so the most effective time for reshares is actually 9 p.m. until midnight. But then there's a spike right here that I'm going to call the bar crowd. That where they sit down. That's the only explanation. It's about 1 till 2 a.m. But there's a spike. So people are really generous. I think they're coming home from the bar and away they go. But here's an interesting one right here. Is that between 4 and 7 a.m., you've got a massive spike. Why would that be?
That's when Donald Trump's awake.
That's when Donald Trump is tweeting the most? Yeah, okay.
There's no for people get up for work.
Like while people are getting up for work. Absolutely. Before I needed glasses as badly as I did, the first thing I would do is I would look at my phone. And I would check out what's going on with the day, or you get up early to get settled, you kind of just break into the day and you catch up on all the news. So the first thing you're doing is looking at it, and then if you find something, especially if you're an avid LinkedIn user, the first thing you want to do is just share that out to all of your colleagues. All right. Facebook, interesting one. Now, again, okay, well, actually, you can at least see the trend that the line is the average interactions versus the posting frequency. So this is one that kind of takes me by surprise, and that's Saturday and Sunday, is that the posting frequency is actually at its slowest during the weekend, which I would have been certain if someone asked me when the most frequent Facebook posts are, I would have said Saturday or Sunday evening. But there they are. Posts published on Sundays have the greatest interactions. And actually, that's something significant. So, and again, if you think about Facebook, and especially now, like what Shamar was talking about, how it's no longer just, oh, here's what I'm having for breakfast. Oh, look what my dog did. Now it's, oh, buy this, buy that. Okay, well, I'm selling this, etc. My biggest frustration with Facebook is I'll find something that I click on, I start to read it, and then I look away, or I break the link, and then I try to go back to it and find it again, gone, because it's now about 50 or 60 deep. So you want to be at the top of the pile during the period that it's the highest shares. Frequency by time, again, you've got the highest frequency is during the day. Now, some would argue that my strategy might not be the right one. I believe in going being the little fish in the big, or sorry, the big fish in the little pond, where some might say, no, you know what? Go with what everyone else is doing because people are consuming during that period. But as you can see by the stats, if they're consuming, they're not being very generous. And especially if you're a B2B organization, something else that you should be aware of with social media, it's not as prevalent anymore, but organizations block social media on their computers because they don't want their staff wasting time. So if you block during the day, you're not really even hitting your target audience anyhow. Peak interactions, so important stuff to keep in mind. So that on Twitter, Sunday between 10 and 11 is your best period for peak of the day and time. Saturday for blogs between 10 and 11. Photos, everyone loves to consume photos. They're a real quick hit. There's no effort to read them or anything else. You just have a look. Then email. Email actually is another one that you should be aware of that I really didn't talk about. Now, with email, you have to, well, okay, you don't have to, but you should be sending out your emails during the day because that's when your audience is there. Because if you want their attention, you've got to send it out when they're at work. Because if they're at home, and this is one of the challenges I have, is that when you guys are sending me emails, this is one of my complaints about Slate, is I get your email on my phone, but I can't reply to it on my phone because I have to log into Slate to reply to your Slate email. So I read it and I go, okay, I'm going to get back to that. And then I put it down and I'm driving and then another email for business comes. Well, I don't ever reply to my emails while I'm driving. But then something else happens and I get a phone call, etc. And all of a sudden, by the time I get home, those emails are now at the bottom of the list. All right, so that's something to be aware of as well, that you want to send it when they're at the desk. And the best time is Wednesday and Thursday between 2 and 5. Fridays, I would not recommend because very few people are reading emails. And if they are, they're not actioning them. They're going to, what they'll probably do is go, yeah, I'll flag that for Monday. Yeah, I'll flag that one too. And they never go back to their flags. So they've got this whole file of lengthy flags, and then they look back and they go, I should have replied to that one. And they don't. So if you're sending out broadcast emails, always try to aim between 2 and 5 on Wednesday and Thursday. Facebook is Sunday between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. That's based on the stats. James, I see that you're going, you don't agree with that one.
You're going to get too soon.
Yeah, I shut it down. I will seldom be on my Facebook at that time. Website development, yeah, that's my peak period. Okay, so that's social media. Any questions? We got it covered a lot. I'll make sure that goes on Slate as well so that you guys have it, because I think that's a really significant piece of information that if you're strategizing, you really should at least keep in their mind. You can go one of two ways, and that's fine, however you want to do it, but make sure that you're understanding what's going on with what you're doing. Okay, so as I've been alluding to all class, yes?
Not in regards to social media, but when running the website and you're dealing with customers, do you recommend using bots or like AI to take care of your website for you or replies or what's not?
Okay, so if you're saying if I get a customer inquiry, do I recommend a bot to reply to my customers? Never, 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 never. I build the relationship with your customer and just let them know that, like, especially if like in my organization, they know that I'm a small organization. They know that I have other clients. So they respect that and they go, okay, you know what, that's cool. And a lot of the time I'll be speaking to the owners directly and they'll say, oh, you're in the car? Okay, call me when you get back to the office and we'll talk. And the face-to-face or the voice-to-voice is so ignored in today's economy that it almost stands out that when you talk to a person on the phone, always pick up the phone call. Even if you're busy, just say, hey, you know what, I'm really busy right now, Shamar, but can you do me a favor? Can I call you back in an hour? And you've acknowledged their inquiry, You've set a time where you're going to be calling them back. Now you can have your information together, and because you know that I'm calling about my website and I've got this list of deficiencies that I want you to fix. So now you've got everything there and you're organized and you can address every one of them, bang, 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 bang. And when the customer hangs up, they're going to go, wow, the company down the road never did that. So that's the key ingredient, is the personal touch. I'd always, always, always recommend phoning. In fact, my company's called Turtleback, and my biggest customer has a nickname for me that he calls me Snappa, because of snapping turtle. So every time he calls, hey, Snappa, and you know what? That kind of relationship is golden in the business world, because I sent him out an email telling him how appreciative I was that he and I worked together, and he did the same. So it's a mutual experience that's really kind of cool, and you don't see that every day anymore. So always. All right, so your site's now launched, because at this stage we've considered social media, we've considered the plugins, we've basically been setting up as much as we can. Now what should we be looking at? So this is where we were talking about some of the plugins, and one of the plugins that I was mentioning was Manage WP. And Manage WP is not only an amazing package of plugins or services, but it's also a great revenue generator for you if you're in the other side of the thing where you're developing the website for the customers, because you're doing all sorts of things for them where they're very, very valuable. And Manage WP, for example, doesn't charge a whole lot. So, for example, if you go onto the WP website, some of these services will range anywhere between $1 a month to $5 a month. However, people will pay $50 or $60 a month to get that service. So that's where the benefit comes in. Make sure that you create safe updates or utilize safe updates. That creates a restoral point. So a bad example, but I'm going to use your example, Shamar, because it really, that doesn't have a real point of where it is. But say, for example, you were on a website, like you're creating a website, and you're about to update your website, and you've got a lot of plugins, and you're not really sure about this latest update, etc. You create a restoral point, and then you update it. So if all hell breaks loose, you can go back into your site and hit that restoral point, and everything's good again. All right. So I would recommend using a service called Safe Updates. That's not on Manage WP. Do vulnerability checks. Always, always, always make sure that you're employing some sort of a vulnerability check. And what that's doing is it's checking for weaknesses in your system, in your passwords and everything else. Theme and plugin management. This is one that's greatly ignored by the masses, because people just, and if you logged into anyone's website, you'll see all these red circles right down from their plugins and their themes, etc., telling them, well, wait a minute, you've got updates. And the problem is sometimes the updates happen so frequently that you can't keep up with them. Now, the nice thing is that if you're a service provider and you belong to Manage WP, you can have all of your clients under the one account. And what it'll do is it'll monitor all of your websites and say, hey, all of these sites need updating. And you can just push one button and they all update for you. So there's services like that. But maintain your plugin management, your theme plugin. James and I had a conversation earlier this semester where they update the themes and the WordPress to patch vulnerabilities. So make sure that you utilize that. Okay, so this is where I stole my thunder earlier about the cloud and local backups. I'd recommend both wherever possible. And if you can't back up to one or the other, I would definitely go with cloud, because if your computer crashes, your website crashes and it's gone forever. Well, unless you pay real heavy bucks to get your data recovered. Also, an uptime monitor. This is actually a really significant feature of Manage WP. In Heather's situation, for example, when she was working on a client's website and all of a sudden the stats started falling, one of the first things that could be a flag is how frequently it's up. So if your site's not up like 99, I think it's 99.8% of the time, you're being flagged by Google because you're not using a reliable enough server. And if I'm a client and my site's not performing, I'm going to look and go, what the heck? And as a developer, you can say, well, you know what? Your host isn't performing. It's not us, it's the host. And this is what we can do to resolve the problem. So make sure that you understand what the uptime monitors do. Security checks, like I say, it's kind of similar to the vulnerability check. But what you can also do is lock down IP addresses or geo addresses based on what they're doing. So say, for example, if somebody's trying to hit a file that's not on my website and they're doing it repeatedly, it'll flag that. Like say, for example, they're trying to hit a password file. You know, for whatever reason they're trying to query my database and trying to get into the password. It can keep hitting it, and if it hits it too many times, it'll shut them down. It'll completely block them. So, and on an aside, every once in a while, I get reminded of different things that I've experienced. If you are creating a SQL server or SQL tables, and you've got a password table, never, ever, 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 ever call it password. Call the table pizza, call the table donuts, call the table X4321, whatever. And the reason for that is the first thing, if I'm a hacker, the first thing I'm going to try to do with your SQL server is find your password table. And most people save it as password. So if I can get into that table, I've got access to all your passwords, unless you're hashing and insulting. But save yourself the trouble. Make sure that you change the name of it if at all possible. With WordPress, it's not as significant. Performance checks, how fast things are loading. Heather and I had a conversation earlier about how fast images load. That's significant. If your site's not loading fast, there's two results. Google frowns upon you, and when Google frowns upon you, the world frowns upon you. But the second thing is clients have come to the expectation of instant gratification. It's no longer even slightly deferred with 2 seconds. If your site's not loading like that, you're bailing, the customers are bailing out, and you might as well not even have a website. So performance checks are really, really significant. Analytics, also make sure that you're running analytics on your WordPress site. So that way you can tell what's going on, where it's happening, when it's happening, because the analytics will tell you a lot of things, but it'll also point out some strategies. So if I've got, for example, on my contact page, people are abandoning it. And it's like they've went all the way to the contact page, and by rights, it's just a quick form to fill out. Why are they abandoning there? Something is turning them off. So now you can start building a strategy going, okay, you know what? What we can do is change this, tweak that, okay, and then start monitoring that way. Or monitor where they're coming in, what country they're coming in from. Like, for example, if I've got a website where, well, my company's name is Turtleback Canada, I primarily service Canada, but if I've got people hitting my site from Russia or Kuwait or something like that, I don't even service those customers. Geo-block them, block their IP addresses, whatever it takes. But you can use analytics to determine where they're coming from. Manage your comments. Make sure that your comments are turned on at all times. Absolutely 100%. I highly recommend it for everybody to use comments at all times. I just don't follow my own advice. But no, definitely comments are a great way, and I really am getting to the point where I'm going to turn them on because it also creates the two-way communication. So if you put something up on your site and someone says, well, you know what, this is a dumb idea, you can at least engage the customer. And if you engage, what happens is a lot of the time people have an issue and you engage them, you can resolve the issue. And that's great. So Justin, you and I, you just bought something from my website, you bought this thing, and you were upset, so you put it on my site, and I engage with you, we go back and forth, we resolve the problem. That's great. I've solved the problem, you're a happy customer. But what I've done now is when James goes to look at my website and see what the results of this are, whoa, it had a problem, but look at the customer service he gave him. Now all of a sudden James going, okay, you know what, maybe it is worth the investment. So you're earning more customers, and as well you're earning the SEO as well, because Google loves new content, and comments are new content. You're letting your customers create your own stuff, content. Oh, look at that, add new content constantly. So once you got your WordPress site up, don't go, ah, perfect, I'm done. There's no such thing as done in today's Web 2.0 world. You always got to be developing new stuff, new strategies. You're always, it's no longer a hobby, it's a lifestyle. Once you've got if you want to be found, and obviously you do because you've taken the time to create your website, you want to be found, so create the new content. I can show you statistics of one of my websites. I don't go on very frequently. I don't update it very frequently. And I can show you that it's brutal for results. But the new websites that I've got, I'm updating frequently. I'm constantly going on and making changes, putting up blogs and whatnot, or just writing new content for your pages. Done. Now, when we're talking about pages on WordPress, I would strongly also recommend never deleting a page. So say, for example, you've got About Us, and you want to change the About Us to About Me. Don't change the permalink. Don't delete the About Us page. Just let it sit on your server. Don't make any reference to it. Don't create any links. But what's happening is Google is crawling your site previously. So if, say, for example, they crawl it and they come across an About Us page that you've deleted, what's going to be returned when the person clicks on that returned result? 404 error. And that's what Google terms as a broken link. And broken links are very, very bad. So even if it's redundant, keep the information on there, or just say, hey, you know what? This page has been moved over here, and create an in-site link so that they click there and it goes to the new About Us page. So it's not a broken link. Because believe it or not, Google's got a very long memory. So I would keep going, keep them going. All right, so that's the end of what we're doing today. I do have some work that I've got to get done for Mark to work through developing a page, etc. Justin, probably the similar idea that you need pages now that you're up.
Yes.
Okay, so I can show that. Shamar, did that work? The fix? Okay, cool. So we've got stuff that we can do with that. Mohammed, you've got pages. Do you need help setting up pages?
I have to set up pages. It's just that I'm not sure like how to set up a particular theme.
Okay, so I can show you that. That's fine. Craig, do you need any assistance tonight, or are you going to go, I'm going home? All right, cool.
Yeah, the assignments, like if you have time to do like a kind of summary
Sure.
of it, and what you're looking for. Like I have like a general idea based on what's posted on Slate, but maybe if you can elaborate.
Okay. This course isn't truly a web design course. It's a web development. So I'm looking for structure, whether you're making sure that the SEO is correct, making sure that you're linking to appropriate like outbound links as well as in-site links, etc. Making sure that your images have alt tags, things along those lines. That's what I'm looking for, structurally sound sites. So for a personal, like for a resume site, make sure that you've got the appropriate insight links where you say, hey, you know what, for more information, you do your call to actions. You know, those things are more important than if you've got a professional picture of you. You know what, hey, great for you that you've got professional pictures. I'm not looking for how you've designed the site. So whether or not all your links are there, because I will probably end up with the submitted sites, I'll probably install a plugin where it's a 404 checker. So like broken link, so that I can basically just go bang, oh, okay, you've got a broken link here, 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 and here. You should use those as well to avoid that. How the site's written. I'm interested to see if you guys are getting the content strategies that we've been talking about in class, using keywords and things like that. And if you'd like, I can show you some keyword analysis tools and things as we're going along in the semester so that you can start to see, because when I first started doing websites, the first thing that I saw was everybody's going to look for a website. I think it was website developer. That was what people were looking for. And then I did my keyword research and I found out that it's not, it's website design. It's not even website designer, it's website design. So you'll learn things that you think you know. So I might go over that because, like I say, it's content. So I want to make sure that you guys have those. So that's the type of thing that I'll be looking for, and completion. So if you're submitting a 4-page site and it should be 5, it's not really complete. If you're submitting a 10-page site, awesome, no problem, as long as they're relevant, as long as the posts are good, and make sure that you've got post development as well, so I can see that you guys are getting the idea. That's the whole concept of the project. Again, if you've put in a reasonable effort, you've really worked hard, I'm not going to crush your dreams. If you've just kind of went, well, you know what, I'm going to mail this in because I've got 2 other assignments due, then that's where we're going to have to have a chat and say, okay, you know, what's wrong with this picture? And looking around this room, I don't anticipate that's going to be an issue. Okay, so did that answer your question?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so Heather, do we need to do anything for you? Okay, you're good. James, are you good? You're helping Shamar, but okay. So, all right. So I can sit down with these 3 gentlemen. I'm going to poke my head in with Shamar, and then we're good. Other than that, if you guys want to head out, thank you very much, and we will see you back next Tuesday. Okay. And I made sure that I said see you back. Okay. I'm going to shut that recording off.
So what you basically, this is a couple of, it's the same things.